This button. All right, there we go. Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Happy market cratering Tuesday. Let me just check to make sure Facebook is working. It is. All right. So, we're going to talk today about a lot of things that people are asking about borrowing money to trade. And a lot of people have big issues with this that, oh, we're borrowing money that we have to pay back. What if we lose? We'd have to pay it back. What if I can't pay it back? That I'm paying on a debt that I didn't have before, and I feel much more comfortable trading with my own cash, with my own property, than using bank money. So let's talk about that. Many of you know that we have an unprecedented time in history to be able to borrow money from banks at an incredibly low rate if we are incorporated, if we have some kind of corporate structure. They're not going to give money to social slaves. They would much rather you pay the higher interest rates that they're running up for everybody. But for companies, though, they need to have corporate loans on their books so that banks make it look like in their financials like it's good, because that's how banks make money. So they're offering 0% to people and companies that have companies from the Redundancy Department. So what can we do? Why would we ever trade with bank money? Because we do have to pay that back. It's not free money. We don't ever want to forgive a loan. Those of you who've done PPP or some other kind of loan, we don't want to forgive loans. That is a very nasty business, especially when the IRS comes for you with the 1099-C that will come your way if you do so. So for us as traders, what's the advantage in trading with bank capital? Now, just so you guys know, there's not a dime of my money in any market anywhere. Not options, not stocks, not crypto, nothing. The only money I have in the market is the real estate market that is my own money, and that's because I had to put it down. I've had to put down payments down. So I believe, and it's my bias, it's my personal belief that especially now with the capability of being able to do 0% interest loans, revolving credit lines from the banks, which we've been waiting for since 2009, it's silly to not be using that money to trade. Silly to not use that money to translate that into crypto or NFTs or whatever it is that you're doing. And here's why. Let's jump into this. Let me pull up a screen or two just for you. All right. Let's take a look here. So you can be the bank. And you being the bank in this case isn't a good thing. Because here, let's say that's you, have $10,000 in capital. Let me just make sure I got this right here. This is working. Okay, it looks like. I just want to make sure I'm sharing. Yes, good. Sorry about that. So let's say you saved up $10,000. A lot of you have $10,000 in your trading accounts, which is great. I mean, amazing. And good work, by the way. Good work saving. But if you made $20 an hour at a job, at a job, as a social slave, and I'm including tax in this, it would cost you 3.5 40-hour weeks to make $10,000. And some of you were like, well, that's not a big deal. I mean, that's just a couple, like a month or two from now. No. This is in addition to the 40-hour job that you already have. So now you're working 80-hour weeks. Some of you are already working 80-hour weeks. So to do this number at that hourly is going to really take you a long time. But let's say you had a system of trading that got you 120% a year, 10% a month. So you'd be making $1,000 a month. And that's kind of what we're looking for. We want to see a system that does us 10% a month at the very least, really, if we're going to take this kind of risk, any kind of risk. And in 10 months, you'll have returned your capital with an extra 2 months on the other side, right? Of $2,000 worth of profits for the year, outside of you returning 100% of the money that you put in. So you're up really, that shouldn't say that. It should say 120%. That's what it should say. So you're doing pretty well if you'd used your own capital. But what's the real cost? It cost you, that's a lot of hours. That's 100 and some odd hours of your life to get this. Now, granted, theoretically, if you lost it all, you don't have to pay it back. That's true. But that's not really true. because that would mean that you would never trade ever again. If for some reason this got liquidated, what, for the rest of your life, you're never going to trade? No. So you're going to obviously have to pay this back, your own money back to you if you lose. So this idea that, oh, a bank, well, that's money we have to pay back. You have to pay this back too, unless you're never going to trade again. Think about that. Let's look what happens, though, if we do it as borrowing from the bank. So this program that we're aware of, let's say you got approved for $10,000. There's a 10% fee, so that means it's going to cost you $1,000. That means you'll have $9,000 left at 0%. That's about, your payment's going to be about 1% a month, so about $90 a month. The same system, but now you're not doing $1,000 a month because you only have $9,000 to invest. You're doing $9,000. So now you're doing $11,000. By the end of the year, again, you've made more than this, but it's like $11,000. You pulled that back because there's no interest here. Just the $10,000, just the $1,000 that we got to pay up front, and that's going to sit on a card at 0%. So who cares? And your ROI, because you didn't put any money into this. None of your own money is here. Not a dime. Not a dime of your time. Not an hour put in to do this, to get this money. You didn't have to work for it. So there's no time that you had to spend to do this. Your ROI is literally infinite. You could be off doing something else. While some guy's over there doing this, trying to work for his money, you could be getting all yours from the banks. So let's look at it this way. Now, you didn't do well. Your system tanked. Still took you this amount of time to get the $10,000. You got liquidated on month 10. It's all gone. It's going to take you another 3.5 40-hour weeks required to do this. Now, that's a lot, right? So you've now put 7 40-hour work weeks into doing this twice. That's a lot of work. But you had a system that didn't work, let's say, and the worst case happened. You got liquidated. It's all gone. That sucks. It's happened to some of you. But don't think for a minute, unless you're never going to trade again, that you don't have to bring that back. You're like, well, I'll make it again. Well, that's repaying this as if it were a loan. Why wouldn't it be? It's 0% to you, and it's 0% to us if we get it from the bank, and we don't have to pay the time to get it. All this is the same. We liquidate it, and then after we liquidate it, yes, we have to pay it back to the bank, and then we're back to our normal time quotient of working to pay it back. But let's take a look at what this looks like from the Department of the Redundancy Department in a timeline. So here's a win, the win category here. This is if you had taken it on credit. This is if you'd used your own cash. So in the first month, you don't make any money because 10% of the money that you got on credit is a fee. So the first, if it's $10,000 and you earned $1,000, 10% a month, you basically would break back even again. So you'd be at 0 to pay off the fees of getting the credit. Then every month subsequently, you'd make $1,000 a month, all the way until you got to December, where you're up about $11,000, which ain't bad. Over here, you don't have any money, you got to work for it. And let's say you already had a 40-hour work week job, you did 20 hours a week extra to pay for your $10,000, not 40-hour weeks, but 20 hours. That means it's going to take about 2 months of working 60-hour weeks, 8 weeks, 20-hour weeks to make your 10 grand. You start making capital here in March, 2 months later. Same capital, same system, no problem. You're about $1,000 down, $1,000 down by the end of December, which isn't that big of a deal, right? I mean, if we look at the graph, they're very similar naturally, right? One starts a little bit later. So basically, you lose about 10% to use your own cash because of the time decay. But you lose about 10% because of the fees of the credit. So really, money-wise, you're about the same, only actually in time you come out of 10% ahead, and you didn't have to spend any of your time. You could be going to Fiji while this is happening. Over here, though, you're working. You guys starting to see this? Let's look at what it looks like if we, let's see here. Let's see what it looks like if we lose. Oh, these windows all in the wrong place. What happens if we lose? That's a pretty looking graph. Check it out. So let's say the first week, the first month, again, we don't make anything. We lose $1,000, so we're down $1,000. Then 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Every month we're losing 10%. We're not gaining until we get to liquidation. Now for us, liquidation happens earlier because we're already down $1,000. So it happens in the 10th month right here, earlier than the cash guy, because we already had to spend 10,000 or 1,000 of our 10,000 to get there. October, we're liquidated. We work for that month, get 5,000 of it back. That's what would that be? 80 hours. And then we work again to return us to zero. And now we've spent quite a bit of time to get there. But at least by the end of the year, with this really flawed trading system, we're back. This is a worst case scenario where you lost all of the money that they gave you on credit. That's what everybody's afraid of. What if I lose all the money? Well, here's what happens. You'll just work it back. You have to pay it back, right? Have to pay it back. Well, if it costs you at $20 an hour, this is what it would take you. 2 months of 20 hours extra a week to work it back. You're back to zero. And by the way, you didn't have to pay any interest. Not bad. Cash-wise, again, you're not trading because you're still working for it. Then your first month, you lose 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. By the end of the year, you're now down $10,000. But look where this guy is, the guy who got the credit. He's ready to go again. Month one, start over, ideally with the better system. But you see this guy's got 2 more months of work, January, February, before he starts up again. So there's a 2-month time delay. And you can see the difference, the profit coming down. But then by the end of the year, the credit guy, gal, is back up to zero while the cash person is still down. Now, some of you are like, well, I can't get a 0% loan, which I say, I bet you can. You should come talk to us. But let's say you couldn't. Let's say you got a 10% loan, which is what I've been talking about for the last year. Who cares? It's like free money, 10%. Okay, so check it out. Same thing. This is on a loser, right? Worst case scenario, 10% loan, 10% APR against you, interest against you. Now, granted, I'm not calculating if you incorporated the tax benefit that you get off of this, which is, in this case, probably about $210. But let's just leave that out for now. So your month one, you're down $1,000, what you lost plus the interest, $2,167, $3,250, $4,333, and onwards it goes until we get liquidated here. Now notice we're greater than liquidated because we liquidated our position, but the interest was still being paid. We were still down. We still had to pay this. So we're down almost 10% by October in the 10th. That's not good. It's a 10% loan, and we're already here. So we work our 2 months. By December, we're down $900. We're still way better off than this dude to pay with cash because we'll be ready to go like, first week of January, early second week, we'll be ready to go. This dude's still got 2 months more to go. It doesn't change much when the interest is 10% or less. Now, you get over 10% and don't do it. Keep it in the single-digit interest rates if you at all can. 0% being the best. But I just want to show you what everybody's afraid of. Oh, we're going to lose our money. No, you're going to have to repay the cash money anyway. Might as well borrow. And look at, okay, this is what I'm going to show you now. Here's the time quotient. The blue and the green are still the income. The yellow is the time of the creditor, right? The person who took credit. Orange is the time that's required of the cash person. Look at how much time is required that you can't get back. Time that you cannot get back. It's a lot of hours to get there. And yes, you're making money, and that's great. But this guy didn't have to spend nearly as much time, a fraction of the time. And what is this time? Oops. What is this time for? This is for the 10%. And really, he doesn't have to spend this time because he's going to make up for it in earnings. He can get it right now. He doesn't have to work for it. I just put it here just to see a worst case scenario. Really, this pays for itself. This pays for the 10% fees, and we end up where we were. On the loss side, you can see that obviously what if we get liquidated of all of our investment that we worked for, income comes down, and then we have to work for it again to build it back up, and that's understandable. Here, though, the blue line is the credit guy. He's back up to 0% and more long before this guy's even done getting losing. And you can see, again, the beginning is the big tipping point of how much time was required to get in. And really, this, again, yellow line is no time. The only time spent starts up here in October when the liquidation occurs. So you can see the incredible power behind borrowing. And I showed you the 10%. This is a 0%, and it's all very, very doable now to get a 0% loan for trading. If you have an LLC with an EIN and a bank account and a reasonable credit score, you can do this and stop having to be a social slave. Not to mention all the tax benefits that come with trading in a company. So how do we do that? Well, one of the ways you can do it if you already have capital yourself is put it into your LLC, but you don't ever gift it, right? We don't gift anything to a company. That becomes what they would classify as you being just an alter ego of yourself here in the company, and you're really just trying to get out of taxes, and then they blow it all up and you're a social slave again. We need something to interrupt this process to make it business legitimate. And the way we do that is by creating a lending agreement. And we would do this in the loans that we're getting because they're based on your FICO but should be used in the company. If you want to be squeaky clean, what you do is you create a licensing or a lending agreement between you, the social slave, and the multi-member LLC. They're going to lend the money that you're getting on credit or the credit cards themselves or the revolving credit or just your cash if you're silly enough to do that. Lend it to the LLC for an interest rate. And that interest rate, the LLC will pay you 10% or whatever you want to make up about it, maybe even a monthly fee. Not bad. You could do that if you wanted. You're the one that's putting up the risk, right? You're the one required to pay it back. Even if the company folds, you're still the one that got issued the credit. You still have to pay it back. And whether it's on your credit or your cash, if the company loses it, you still have to be made whole. And whether you're doing it or the company's doing it, it still has to be made whole. And then once you lend your money to the company's going to do that 10% a month thing we're talking about, which is about 120% ROI. And that's not bad because 10% of it's coming back to you. You're making money coming and going. And where is your money? Is it sitting in a bank account nice and safe? No. Well, first of all, it's not safe in a bank account. We're sending it and putting it into the marketplace where it can be exploited for the maximum. And this is a beautiful, extremely legal cycle that you can do to borrow money. Now, what about the money that this guy gets? Can we do the same with that? Yes. The bank, I'm making up that the legacy is sending here is the bank. The bank lends money to Jan. Jan gets the capital. Then Jan lends it to the company. And then, but let's say the bank's lending it at 0%. Jan's not going to lend it at 0%. Jan's going to lend it at 10%. So now Jan's making 10% on the money that she got from the bank. Meantime, the multi-member LLC is making $1.20, right? ROI. Everybody's winning, except the bank. Although the bank's winning because it's got a loan on its books. It's good. You see how this works? You're starting to see some of the out-of-the-box thinking that we can be as traders to get A, out of our social slave numbers, B, utilize bank funds, C, utilize our own funds in a way that can be beneficial and give us another level of return. I also have a video up on how to use other people's FICO scores in your company if you just can't get a good FICO score yourself, which is completely viable. But, I like big but you cannot and must not do any of this if you have a sole proprietor LLC. There are very few states in this union of ours that will allow you to do this cycle with you being the only person here. Why? Because it looks like it's just you, an alter ego of yourself trying to get out of taxes. They will blow you up and nuke and repave in 2 seconds. Multi-member LLC. Reach out if you don't know how to do that. If you got bad FICO, there's ways to solve it. There's credit repair. Most of you, know someone who does that. We've got a really great situation there. There's credit enhancement, where we can get trade lines to help bolster some of the areas in which your credit may not be great, like maybe not enough history or not big enough trade lines in your history. We can deal with that easily. Credit reorganization, which is what we talk about on the Financial Freedom Formula, which I'll give to you. If you're DCG, I'll give you this course on how to deal with your finances and start rebalancing your credit so that it looks better on your FICO. But if you've got a bankruptcy or an IRS tax lien, you got to have a corporate solution. This kind of solution is required, not for you, because there ain't no helping you for 10 years. I'm sorry to say. Anybody who says differently, unless you can solve the IRS tax lien, which you can, can't solve the bankruptcy. It's 10 years. Sorry. But that doesn't mean that you're out of luck, because you can get a corporate solution. And it doesn't have to be an LLC, although I recommend you start with one. And what's good about an limited or an LLC? Well, they're limited liability. That means if something happened to you personally or the company, neither attacking party could go after the other. So if they came after your LLC to come grab debts, they couldn't get your personal assets. If they come after you personally, they can't grab your LLC assets. You get lots of tax breaks. Your tax bracket max is 21%. Yo, how awesome is that? The Uniform Commercial Code is your friend now, not just the penal code or the civil law or the administrative remedy. One of the top laws in the land defend your companies. You obviously get preferred credit and capital because these guys are willing to give you 0%. Pretty dope. And then with the capability of doing multi-members, you have so many more possibilities, like leveraging the FICO of someone else in your company, maybe more than one person, to get your financial goals. And the multi-member LLC, C Corp, even S Corp, can be the answer to so many problems, not just because it's deferring liability and all these other things, but also because anybody who says, oh, it's just you fooling around, you're like, no, it's a democracy. I'm just one vote among many. We all agreed. There's also a tax pass-through, which we solve with a C Corp, but it has certain advantages. It also helps demonstrate you're not commingling your personal funds or voting rights, because there's a bunch of people here, it's not just you. And then you can have multiple roles via contract. So someone who's a manager now could also be somebody who's lending money to the company because they've got a good FICO and are using the banks to be a bank. Or maybe they're now the secretary, or maybe they're now the trading partner. All these things are possible. Various hats. If I had a hat, I'd be doing this. Various hats available. But this is kind of that stepping away from the normal social slave rule that we're all stuck in from FICO land, especially if you can't get good FICO, or it's going to be a while for you to get that. Leveraging somebody else's assets, and then using those bank assets, those institutional assets, to trade. There's no reason to use your own assets to trade. Not when it costs so much time to do so, to get the money in the first place. Deploy your money for your bills or something else. Take your kids to someplace nice. Don't use them to trade. Use credit to trade. It doesn't cost that much more in money, and it's infinitely saving in the only resource that we have that's unrenewable, and that's time. So hopefully this has been valuable to you. If so, whatever the questions, reach out. And for those, all you DCG folks, it doesn't matter what you're putting it in: Forex, NFTs, mining equipment, equipment for business, marketing, crypto, options, stocks, bonds. We don't tell them that's what we're doing. And in fact, if this is something you wanted to do, we should talk so I can coach you through exactly what it is that we do in order to be able to do such a thing. Because banks don't want to give you and will not give you money if they find out you're investing it, because that's what they want to do with the money. They don't want you doing that with their money. So we should talk. But otherwise, have a great week, y'all. We'll talk soon.